I studied over 30,000 hours at Stanford Med School and Harvard for residency. That doesn't even count the studying I did in college, high school, and all the years before that. The sad truth is that I only needed about 6,000 of those hours. My hope with this video is to help you, whatever it is that you're studying, get more out of your own learning so that you don't waste nearly as much time as I did. So tell me if you can relate to this. For years, every time that my score would stall on one of my school exams or one of my big board exams, I reached for the same answer: study more. Specifically, I was stuck in what I call the learn more loop. My score would stall. I assumed that I had a knowledge problem. And so then, as a consequence, I would just grind more and more to try to just learn more content. And then, because my problem wasn't necessarily a problem of content, my score would barely move. And then I would blame myself and either grind harder, or oftentimes I would just get really discouraged. And then I would kind of like barely study, or I would kind of procrastinate and, do something else with my time. I coach a lot of students who tell me something very similar. They say, I don't understand, because there's a lot of people that I see who are working a lot less hard than I am. They are somehow scoring a lot better. Maybe it's your friends that go out and party a lot, who leave the library a lot faster than you do, but they still are able to somehow pull higher grades. Maybe it's people who just seem like they know what it is that they're doing. I can tell you from my own experience, this happened a lot, especially in the beginning of medical school, where I would be like, how is it that these people are studying so much less and somehow seem like they know so much more? The reframe that eventually changed everything for me was that studying more only works if the problem is actually knowledge. And frankly, almost none of my problems after a certain point were about knowledge. So across over 30,000 hours of studying, I was usually solving the wrong problem. Next, let me show you the most common problems that I actually had. The first is the most expensive, and it's the one that I wasted the most hours treating like a knowledge gap when it never really was. Problem one was that I knew the material and I would still get the question wrong either on exams or on rounds because I misunderstood what was actually being asked of me. I coach students, residents, fellows, and attendings on how to do better on their board exams, and one of the most common things that I see is that over half of the missed questions on high-stakes exams are actually not about knowledge at all. Instead, they're about interpretation. Maybe I misread a word. Maybe I never identified the concept that was actually being tested. Now, in fairness, if you can relate to this, we come by this honestly. Almost all of med school will train us to just memorize more and more. The first class I ever took in med school was anatomy. And I remember that there was just like this huge range of minutia that they just had us memorize. They even set up the exams to basically force you to memorize even more, because on the exams, they would give you like 5 different statements for one of the sections, and they would say which of the statements is false. So in other words, you had to know every single one of the statements to know whether it was true or not. Only then could you get the question correct, right? So in other words, forcing you to memorize just this huge amount of information. Then one of the next subjects that I came to was cardiology. And I remember because I scored the highest in the entire exam for my Stanford class. And the embarrassing thing was I actually barely knew cardiology. Like, I remember trying to understand like a clinical vignette. I remember trying to understand a practice question in cardiology for one of the board exams, and I barely understood what was going on. And so there was this massive gap between what it is that I'd memorized to do extremely well on my exam and what I was actually able to use and apply. It was actually my cardiology exam that was a huge wake-up call for me. I realized that memorizing more past a certain point was never the lever that I thought that it was. The cap in my score was actually coming from something else. If you can relate to this, where your scores are kind of plateauing even though you're just like studying more and more and trying to learn more and more content, the fix isn't more content. Oftentimes, at least in my case, one of the biggest fixes was improving my reading skills. It was naming the concept before the question, something that we call the standalone question, and to read every detail with a purpose. The way that to know if you have the knowledge but you have an interpretation problem is if you do a practice question and you get it wrong and you look at the answer explanation and you say something like, oh my God, I knew that, as soon as you see the answer explanation. If that's true, it's most likely not a knowledge problem. Instead, it's an interpretation problem. Even when I read the question correct, there was still a second problem that was hiding underneath, and fixing it helped me really take my score to the next level. That was problem number 2, which is that I'd learned the fact cold, but I still couldn't use it in the moment that the exam asked it in a way that I hadn't seen. So what exactly do I mean? Knowing a fact and being able to apply it in a new context are 2 completely different skills. That's what they call transfer. So remember back to my cardiology example, I had memorized a huge number of facts. I had literally taken all of the PowerPoints from my lectures and I'd gone through the notes and I had learned the details to such an extent that I got the highest grade in my entire class. If you want to be massively more efficient with your studying, be sure to check out our 14-step free program in the description. In it, we describe some of the most impactful techniques that have helped me and thousands of other students to improve their studying and retention and test taking. However, just because I'd memorized it and I could regurgitate it onto an exam, I didn't start getting cardiology questions correct on the boards until I understood it. For example, I had memorized the equation that MAP equals cardiac output times total peripheral resistance. I had also memorized that preload and contractility move cardiac output, and that afterload was essentially equivalent to TPR. However, it wasn't until I'd really internalized exactly what that meant and made sort of an analogy in my head that it really started to click and I started to get a lot more questions correct. So for example, for that equation, I started to think about it like a garden hose. So I would think about it like cardiac output is just the amount of water that's kind of going through the hose. I would think of TPR or the resistance as like, okay, what if I kinked the hose? And once I understood that, okay, well, kinking the hose is going to increase the pressure upstream, I was like, oh yeah, now I intuitively understand, because I know the concept, why increasing the resistance would actually increase the MAP. If you find yourself in the same position and you are wasting hours upon hours just memorizing things because that's kind of just the way that you've always done it, like, had been the case for me, the fix is to learn the principle and not the isolated fact. One principle can replace 5 facts, 50 facts, or even 5,000 facts. And then once you do that, you want to make flashcards that will force you to apply the concept, not just regurgitate it. We'll talk next about how to never forget something that you've learned, at least for now, is that when you recall these things, when you're forcing yourself to actually remember them, you need to force yourself to remember them and use it as opposed to just regurgitate information. This is why I literally knew hundreds, if not thousands of facts about a topic, and I would still freeze when the wording would change on a question. You'll see this all the time on like Reddit boards or like, student doctor, things like that, where people will walk out of their exam and they will be kind of in this panic and they'll say, oh my God, my test was nothing like what I prepared for. It wasn't like my UWorld questions or like my NBME questions. It was just completely different. And the reason that they say that is that they went in thinking that the exam was about memorization. And so they had learned how to solve specific problems in only very specific ways because they were essentially just memorizing it, as opposed to learning the principle and then recognizing that the details were going to change on their exam and then adapting their application of that principle, right, to the changing details. This is super important, especially if you're studying for things like the MCAT or like AP physics or chemistry or any of the USMLEs or the ABIM boards. Like any test that forces you to apply a principle is going to basically make all of your just sort of cramming and memorization sort of hours of studying very, very, very inefficient. The next problem that I want to talk about is one that quietly devoured more of those 30,000 hours than any other. That problem was that even if I would genuinely learn something and understand the concept, 3 weeks later, it was just completely gone. And so I had to waste all that time relearning it. One of the saddest realizations that I had made in my life was when I realized that so much of the time that I was spending studying for big exams, like a final exam or even a big midterm, or certainly things like the MCAT or things like Step 1 or Step 2, so many of those hours were spent trying to replace knowledge that I had lost, like relearn it, rather than learning anything new. That's why so many of the more than 30,000 hours that I spent studying was wasted, because I was essentially relearning things that I had already learned. There's a math equation that helps really bring this home. There's a simple way to visualize the maximum amount of knowledge that you could possibly ever have in your head at any given point. If you divide the how much you learn per day over the percent of that you're going to forget every day. If you graph this out, if you do the math, the counterintuitive part is that the ceiling, right? In other words, how much your maximum knowledge will be is driven far more by pushing the percent forgotten towards 0 than by cramming in more per day. I would either have to 3x the amount of knowledge that I accumulated every single day. In other words, 3x the amount of pages that I was going to read or, concepts that I was going to learn, or I could decrease from 30%, the amount that I would forget per day, down to 10%. The crazy thing is that you can actually reduce the amount that you forget to less than 1%. And so what that means is that right now, if I'm forgetting 30% of everything that I've learned every single day, if I could take that from 30% down to 1%, I could literally 30x the amount that I can retain. Now, I know that that sounds crazy. However, what I will tell you is that with spaced repetition, this is actually possible. And I know this because I have literally reviewed over 28,000 flashcards worth of information every single day for the last, I don't know, 17 years. And at this point, it only takes me about 20 or 30 minutes a day to remember everything because only a fraction of those flashcards I actually have to study in a given day. So maybe like 50 or 60 of those flashcards are actually due on any given day. As a consequence though, my retention has gone astronomically higher, which means that the amount that I can retain is just so much higher than it was before. Like I remember when I would study for a midterm in med school and I knew it cold. It was developmental biology. And I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, I know this so well. And then 2 weeks later, I tried to look at my same notes that I had just used to do very well on the midterm. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know most of this stuff. And so maybe 30% forgetting is too high. We can argue about like, what the actual numbers are. In my case, it was actually quite high. What I can tell you though is that for someone who has really bad ADHD and really struggles to remember things, like my retention is actually really poor, I can remember so much information to the point that people thought I was just like a genius because I could just remember so much of the material that I'd learned. Now, even with the massive increase in knowledge that I experienced, there was still a fourth problem that had nothing to do with how much I knew. That fourth problem was that I would walk in knowing the medicine and hand back points to panic and second guessing. Now, tell me if this sounds familiar. You are doing a question and you get stuck between two answer choices, but in reality, one of the answer choices you're kind of leaning towards. You're like, this one kind of seems like it would make sense, but there's this one thing that doesn't quite fit. So I'm gonna just throw out this answer and I'm gonna choose the other answer almost by default. I'll give you a real example. So I was coaching a student and she was interested in pediatrics, which means that she knew all the pediatric conditions really, really well. It also meant that she understood Klinefelter syndrome. And so there was a patient, it was classic Klinefelter, except that there was one detail that was missing. Instead of them being really tall, which you'd expected, which is like the classic case of Klinefelter syndrome, they were adolescent. And so they were actually not super tall yet. And so she didn't actually know that in adolescents, they might not actually be really tall because they don't have that growth spurt. Because they weren't tall, she was like, well, everything else fits with Klinefelter syndrome, but this one thing doesn't fit, so it must not be Klinefelter. And so then she chose some other random answer where the patient wasn't supposed to be tall. That's what we call being the lawyer versus being the judge. The lawyer is someone that can talk you out of the right answer because they're gonna find any sort of flaw in that and they're gonna start to make you doubt whether that's the right answer or not. That's why you can see people spiral after one very difficult question. This happened a lot to me. When I was in med school, I did a whole year of dedicated research towards small cell lung cancer. And so I knew a ton about this topic. However, I got so many questions wrong on small cell lung cancer, in part because I knew almost too much about it. I would see a question and I would think, well, that's not exactly what it is that I would expect for small cell lung cancer. So that can't be right. And then I would just throw it out and then I would just choose some other answer, even though it made zero sense. Remember how I said before about half of the questions that people miss typically aren't because they know the knowledge? This was a huge part of how I would miss questions because even though I knew the knowledge, I would still not let myself use it because something didn't quite fit. Now, this is a gap that you close not by studying more, it's about changing your expectations and it's changing the way that you're reading questions. So what do I mean? Part of this is an expectation problem. So in step 1 versus pretty much every exam that you're going to take after that, so shelf exams and step 2 and step 3 and ABIM if you go into internal medicine, or most of the sort of written boards that people take for the specialty boards. Step 1 is different in the sense that there's a lot of signal and not a lot of noise. So signal is there to basically show you that this is the right answer. So for example, with someone who's got a heart attack, it would be, oh, they've got left-sided chest pain and maybe it radiates to their shoulder, or maybe they've got an increase in troponins, or they've got ST elevations and particular leads. Though that would all be signal, right? Those are all things that are leading you towards the correct answer. Noise would be something that doesn't fit or that's actively kind of leading you away and kind of trying to confuse you. So for example, in the heart attack example, it might be that they have diabetes, and so as a consequence, they don't have really classic chest pain. Or maybe it's that they don't have any ST changes on their EKGs, or maybe that the troponins are initially normal or something like that, right? That would all be noise. Now, the important thing to remember is that for step 1, it's mainly signal and not a lot of noise. What's different though is that starting with shelf exams and step 2 and step 3 and ABIM and all these other exams is that the noise is substantially louder. Either they will actively try to confuse you by making it really noisy, or either they will actively try to confuse you, they'll, say that they've got acid reflux, right? So something else that could potentially explain chest pain, or they will make the signal weaker, meaning that they won't give you the classic thing that you're looking for. So what really common mistake that I see people make is that they say, well, when I think of a heart attack, then I think, well, they've got to have left-sided chest pain and it must radiate to the jaw and et cetera, right? And so if it doesn't meet their criteria or their threshold for, oh, this is the classic presentation of this condition, they will just throw out that answer. Now remember, no amount of extra content is going to fix this. What you have to do is first fix your expectation, and then second, change the way that you're actually reading the question. Now, once I could tell these first 4 problems apart, the most important habit of all finally clicked into place. And that's the one that can unlock this for you forever. And that unlock was realizing that there was never gonna be a single fix. For me, it was learning to ask before I studied anything, which of these problems did I actually have? Because the solution to them is completely different depending on the diagnosis of what was going wrong. Early me would look only at the symptom, like, oh, I got a question wrong, or oh, I got stuck between 2 answer choices. And I would think like, oh, well, I guess I'm just that kind of person. I'm just the kind of person that's not a good test taker. Oh, I guess I'm just the kind of person who has to outwork other people in order to get a lower score. Instead, eventually what I learned was that I had to look for the root cause and fix the root cause. In other words, ask why until I found the real gap. And yes, in fairness, sometimes it was actually knowledge, right? Remember I always said 50% of the time it wasn't a knowledge gap? And usually up to 50% of the time, it actually was a knowledge gap. But more often than not, it was a tiny specific gap. Like it'd be a certain protein that I didn't know, or one specific number that I hadn't memorized. Not like, oh, I have to just relearn this whole topic and go and just like, reread all of first aid. This is the key principle that would have saved me over 24,000 hours of studying. It would be to match the fix to the actual problem, and first diagnose what the real problem is. For example, instead of throwing hours upon hours trying to relearn or learn new knowledge when the gap was interpretation, I could have saved a ton of time by just identifying exactly which gap in interpretation I had and learning how to fix it. So because you're still with me, I want to tell you what I would tell myself if I could go back to my first day of medical school or even the first day of high school. And that would be that if I could go back, I wouldn't tell myself to study harder. I would tell myself instead to stop assuming that every problem was a knowledge problem, because that assumption was the one that cost me the most. I would tell myself, remember, just because you struggle with something doesn't mean that you're a bad test taker. And it almost certainly doesn't mean that you just need to cram in more hours. Instead, what you really need to do is to find out which problem that you actually have. Is it an interpretation problem? Is it that you can't apply it? Is it that you're forgetting it and having to constantly relearn stuff? Or is it just in your own head? And then do everything you can to fix that one problem before you move on. If you do that, you won't need the more than 30,000 hours that you're planning on studying. Instead, you will only need a fraction of them. Now, if you want to over 100x your total knowledge, the way to solve that is through retention, knowing something once and never ever losing it again. If you want to see exactly how far that goes, here's the system that means I haven't had to relearn anything in over 17 years.